This video has taken me a while to formulate, to try to see many sides of the argument and understand that I don't know everything and that I can't fully understand where everybody is coming from, but I can see the vile and terrible things that are happening and that I need to show an opinion that I truly believe is justified in something good. So today I'm going to be talking about George Floyd and the recent happenings that, if you've been living under a rock, are posted everywhere. It's a very difficult subject to come across. I understand that many people are heated, and I understand that there's a lot of outrage that are happening, and then that outrage has caused a backlash against other people's beliefs or understandings of what's happening. But I want to go in a little bit into the incident of what happened, and then I want to go into the aftermath that's been occurring recently and see if we can find something that we all take into account as something positive that can come out of this video. So first off, we have the George Floyd situation. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know what's going on, George Floyd was grotesquely and very vilely killed while under police custody, and it is something that is truly tragic. Should not happen, and I can downright say that it was malintended. It was very, very terrible. From what I've seen, George Floyd was detained in handcuffs, walking to a police car, and then somehow was then put on the ground and pinned with a knee on his neck, which we have seen time and time again have very, very terrible outcomes and things that should not be trained or permitted. I feel like every single time I see something terrible happen to somebody who's in custody like that, there's a knee on the neck. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what might have caused the accident. I've heard speculation that that's not actually what caused the problem. But guys, we have to be honest about it. It's excessive that if someone has handcuffs on, when we're pinning them with a knee on, like that's not how humans should interact with each other on a basic understanding of how people should treat each other. And so with that, due to the fact of the circumstances that happened, the officer that had his knee on the neck has been charged with a third-degree murder. And if you don't know what a third-degree murder is, basically first and second degree have to deal with intent. And the jury has to decide whether or not intent had an issue with the murder. And so with this development of a third-degree murder, basically we're taking the intent out of the situation in order to say, were the actions that were excessive and far outreaching and unruly demonstrated? Were they reasonable in the act of what was happening? And personally, I believe that's absolutely not necessary. If you, like I said, handcuffed, how do you get on the ground and pinned with a neck after you've already been handcuffed? Absolutely disgusting to me. Terrible. Very, very terrible. And so out of this event happening, we then have these protests that erupt. And now I understand that many people are going to have two differing viewpoints on what these protests represent. And I want to be very careful on how we determine what we feel is a protest and what we feel is a riot. With the protests that have been going on, there are people within the protest who understand the terrible tragedy that occurred and want to correct what is going on. A protest, as understood from my perspective, should be a group of people out in a very large mass of support for a certain cause or a certain correction or change that is wanting to be taken. And what happens is that an official from that group of people, someone who understands the true veracity of what is going on, will then meet with an official, an elected official, such as a governor or a mayor or something, in order to say, hey, we need this policy or law changed because of the fact that it is wrong. We, the people, understand that we need a change. We need something different. And there's an outcry from the community that says, this is wrong. Granted, as I sit here, I'm not sure the full intent of what that is needing to be happen. I don't live the life of a Black American. I know that's hard to comprehend, but this is not Black. And that makes me not see the full intent of what would need to be happening. But with that being said, there was a subset of people inside of these protests that then turned the protest into a riot. And that subset of people, I truly believe, lost sight, maybe not even lost, didn't even have sight in the general vicinity of what was needing to happen. Burning property, looting, and stealing, I feel, is a very terrible and unfortunate thing to happen to rise up out of these protests. I understand that many people think, well, the next time someone thinks about doing something, guess what? They're going to have a picture of a burning building, or they're going to have a blown out window, or whatever. I can see where the rationality comes from that, but I can't understand why you would destroy businesses that service your community in the fact that you wouldn't be able to go to the grocery store on Monday. How can you sit there and burn down an entire, you name it, so that people, one, can't get the jobs that they have are gone. The city that you're servicing, as far as whatever, let's just say it was a Windies. I saw someone post something about a Windies where they're asking the burned down police department, well, someone help me, I need the Windies, but the police department had been burned down. That Windies can no longer serve the public. It's just very strange to me where your intent is lying on what you're thinking you're getting changed. The only thing you've changed is a group of workers who can no longer go to work, and a business owner who now has to repair and put forth very, very large infrastructure in order to get back to work. What does this resolve? Now understand, with that, as I'm trying to show here, there are people within the protest who didn't want that to happen. They had a sight, they had a vision, they understood what they were going for. This is obviously not the thing that's going to be perpetuated in the media, because that wouldn't go with the narrative that we need to have an us versus them mentality, that we need to have a fight or a squabble between the two. The two sides properly need to have a conversation about what's happening and what needs to be resolved, because in all honesty, it's gotten out of hand. Let's take it from the words of an officer right now. See what he has to say.
I just want to let everybody know here that we do want a relationship with y'all. We hate this. We hate this as much as y'all do. Because every day we come to work, we're just as scared as y'all are now. Y'all see the police officers across the country getting killed.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's the
we need to cut this out. This is ridiculous. We need to have a relationship. Yeah. You should be able to call me to come help you without having to worry about what's going to happen when I show up. Right. You understand what I'm saying? I promise you, 98% of the cops across the country, we're here to help. Now, there are some bad apples that get in there, and it makes us just as mad as it makes y'all. I promise you.
Now, I want to be very clear on this. When we're talking about a subset, we need to also look at the subset and what that word means. That subset is not everybody. We have to stop painting with a brush. We've been doing that for far too long, and I plead that you'd stop. Just recognize that the brush mechanic never works and becomes an us versus them problem for everybody involved. If we brush all rioters and looters as as rioters and looters instead of protesters who have a mission, not necessarily a mission, but have an outrage, an outcry, a plead for help. If we can break apart that brush, we should also break apart the brush that paints all police officers as racist and bigots and whatever you want to say. Stop painting with a wide brush, because the man in the uniform takes off the uniform and is a civilian at different times. He has feelings and understandings too. He wants to go home to his family just as much as the person who's being arrested wants to go home to theirs. We have to break apart this thing that people are within a group, and that group mindset is what they all adhere to, and that's it. That's the only way it is. It's not what's happening. Every person is an individual, and the content of character of that person should be the most resounding thing that a person feels or understands about a person. The content of character should be what someone is judged by, not because of the uniform they wear or the skin that they were born with. We need to break apart these ideologies that there is an us versus a them. I plead and pray that you guys think about everything that's going on and understand that your perception of something may not be the correct one that needs to be had in this situation. Listen, we cannot continue down this road of us versus them. Come together, have conversations, understand that each person has individual thought, and understanding that what they believe may be good. And if we all just talked a little more, I feel and I hope that we all would talk more, and that would turn into we the people as everyone, not just some. With that, enjoy your freaking day. I'm out of here. I'll see you next time.